right. Can you hear me well? All good? I think the door will close and we're going to start really soon. Cool. All right. So hello, everyone. My name is Dish, and I work as a product manager for Metacore. I have a privilege there to basically work on Merge Mansion. Probably it sounds more familiar than Metacore for you, and this is the game that have Grandma Ursula and Maddie there. And just want to start, I'm really thrilled to be here, and as well, thank you so much for coming to the session, for those of you here and anyone listening online or watching it later. So really quickly about Metacore. So we are Helsinki-based. Our goal is to build basically hit games. That's our main goal. We kicked off in 2020, but actually our founders have a long experience of gaming in their pocket. And our game, Merge Mansion, have around 45 million players now in it. We've been growing as well year over year for 2020, as I shared. We are still growing as well in 2023 and growing to basically scale, of course, our game and build more games as well than just Merge Mansion, which I'll touch on later. We are based in Helsinki, and Helsinki, you probably heard, we win a lot, being happiest country in the world, and being a foreigner myself, living in Finland for 13 years, just got to say, with the winter we have, being the happiest country is not an easy thing to pull. So, but yeah, it's a really good environment for gaming in general. I think it's just a chill country as well. So that's why a lot of big names in gaming like Supercell and as well Rovio came out of there, and in console as well Remedy. So, Merge Mansion, you probably heard from the news as well. We acquired ARPDAU, the IP that Supercell was building, and then we are building it from the ground up. We have as well other games in place. You will hear about them soon. Not in this presentation, I don't promise. And this is probably how, I was talking with other people outside as well, and I mentioned about Merge Mansion and Metacore. And this is I find this is how most people really heard of us, the Pedro Pascal campaign. And it actually has to do a little bit with the presentation I'm doing here. It did have a lot of of course, positive feedback from our players, but as well from the people in the media in general. And I just want to a little bit reflect on why we do that. So for us to entertain the players, of course, we can do it through the small screen, through the game itself. But as well, we believe we are part of the entertainment industry in general. So if we can entertain the players through as well other channels, let's say our videos, our ads, news, even player support, that's something we try to do all the time. So that's why we as well try to do it. The way we entertain players on small screen can be different than in a, let's say, a video on YouTube or in an ad. Cool. So this is basically the beginning of all of that. So even though we are a flat structure as a company, we are quite top-down when it comes to our players. So we really see that the players are the bosses, which means you really need to understand your players, to be able to deliver that experience I've been talking about. Just quickly about myself as well. So as mentioned, I work as a product manager, which means in our case, I work on the high level strategic vision of the game, and as well road mapping and prioritizing the features we're building, and as well on the feature level itself, collaborating with our designers into the game economy itself and the features, how we build them and which features we should do. I have a bit background in data analysis, which might relate a little bit to this presentation, and as a solution architect as well, and a product lead and product management. I worked at Unity and at Rovio before as well, and at Orange. But yeah, now let's go to why you're here, right? So a really long title, and I was thinking, Unraveling Player Dynamics, Behavioral Retention, and its Impact on Mobile Game Growth. And I have to admit, I actually gave this to ChatGPT to ask if that makes sense. And it did say it makes sense. But then it didn't make sense to me after that. But then I decided to actually use it as an agenda. So that will be our agenda from now on, right? So the first part in the agenda, which is the last word, you can see I prepared really well for this. Growth. What does really growing a game mean? So let's imagine a hypothetical scenario where you have a mobile game And in this mobile game, you make monthly around 5 million. You aim that next year, you make 15 million. That's growth, as simple as that. Which means you want to grow by 200%, which means you want to increase your monthly revenue by 10 million. That's like how as simple as it can get when it comes to growth. Cool, now let's look at this 10 million into smaller parts. So the first thing, I can grow the average DAU, so the players who actually come to the game. Or I can increase how much, like the average revenue per daily active user and how much money basically these players spend in the game. If I want to increase the DAU, I'll spend more UA, get more players. Or I can increase the activity of the players I have already. If I want to increase the monetization side, then I can increase the conversion, so how much a person actually spend money in the game. Or those who spend, I can increase the average revenue per paying user, so how much each person who actually spends in the game, right? Added up, they will increase how much, in general, money I make. Now, coming back to the activity, to increase the activity in the game, it means as well, either I make players spend more sessions in my game, so they find it more fun to play in the game, or then within that session they play, I make it worth it that they spend more time in that session. Why I've been mentioning these basics? Just to have the grounds as well of this presentation. So in this presentation, I'm not going to talk about the UA side. I'll focus on both the activity side and the ARPDAU side. So that's just when it comes to this presentation. Cool. Now, as a gaming team, when we come and try to build a feature, this is usually like how most of us look at things. So we say, okay, I want to increase the revenue generated by a certain segment in a certain month, or starting from a certain month. Let's say I'm adding a permanent feature. And basically, I do that by lifting a certain metric, like the ones I shared with you. And we will do it through now the actual fun and the actual work, releasing a specific feature. Or it could be I actually update an existing feature. Or it could be I change basically something in the structure of my LiveOps and what runs week over week or month over month. And usually as a team, you come up with that decision either by learning from your data, your quantitative data, or then qualitative data. Sometimes, quite often for us as well, just gut feeling and intuition working in the game. Or that just market common practices, which we see quite often now, that if one successful game does something, another studios look into it and try to adapt, which is fine. Now, this presentation will focus on this first one, segments, and we'll as well look into the quantitative side of things, the data side. All right, so let's kick in segments. Quite often, as game teams, when we talk about segments, we mean either monetization. So, for example, LTV, how much a person spent in their lifetime, or maybe how much they spent last week, last month. Or we usually as well segment our players by progression. So how many levels they completed, what is the player level. But this presentation is not about both. I will mention both because they'll come handy here. But it's about the behavioral side. And behavioral stuff, we can come with it with qualitative data, like the surveys we run, we learn about our players and all of that. But now we will talk about the quantitative, as I mentioned, and how from data we can drive those, and then go back to the qualitative. So why segmentation is important? I thought being in England, that might make sense. So if you just segment your players and look at your main metrics, like your ARPDAU, your conversion, you know, all of those important metrics for us to run as a business, and you think that if you have a problem in your ARPDAU, you can just look at your LTV more than $500 or more than $1,000, and it will be enough. That won't be the case, right? Because you'll find that both Prince Charles and Aussie actually ends up in the same segment. What we both know, they're not the same segment, but when it comes to demographics and LTV, you will find that they're both male, born in 1948, right? Lives in a castle, been married twice as well, and quite wealthy and famous. So that takes us to the second part of the agenda, or the title in this case, which is the behavioral side. And I thought, before jumping into this, to actually discuss a little bit first on why players behave differently. So a little bit about the theories behind that, and why should we care as well. So I want to share with you 4 theories that it's not going to be boring. I will rush through them, I hope. I promise you, but they will come quite relevant to you soon. And the first one is the SDT, or the self-deterministic theory. And this just talks about how, as humans, and players, right? Because most of our players are humans. As humans, we like to be self-deterministic. In this context, since I will focus on game growth, it means I like to choose how I spend my gems, for example, my hard currency that I buy in the game. That's really important. You cannot take that from me. The second theory is operant theory, or actually Skinner's theory, rather. And Skinner's theory is more talking about what kind of reward I get. Now, I decided to spend my gems in a certain way. As a person, I perceive and I evaluate as well that experience by looking at what reward I get. So if I spend gems in this game, if I spend my hard currency in this game, and as well I actually try to commit to it, what kind of reward do I get? Do I really progress? Like, do I feel I'm satisfied? Do I feel happy by playing this game? The third is goal-setting theory. And goal-setting theory is actually, well, the most clear one out of all of them. It means as humans, we perform better. So I progress in the game better. So I feel happier when I set a goal. Now, coming to the topic, or behaviors. We will find, for example, in Merge Mansion, our game, some players prefer to set a goal to upgrade their spawners or producers that spawns the items in the board in a Merge game. Or maybe if you're a different type of game, your heroes or your kind of main character in the game. Some players prefer that. Some other players don't really care about that. They want more to finish tasks quickly, as quickly as possible. Now, they don't have to go against each other, of course, to complete the tasks. Meanwhile, I will upgrade my heroes or upgrade my spawners. That's fine. But they have different goals, which means, considering the previous theories, they have really different train of thoughts, which means as well, taking us to the last theory here, the flow theory. And I have to give kudos to my fellow colleague and designer, Patrick. We keep talking about flow a lot whenever we talk about any feature. And flow theory is about how, as humans, we prefer to be immersed in an experience, or we enjoy it a lot when we are immersed in an experience, in this case, playing a game. When we actually find that what we do is satisfying for us, in a sense that what I'm doing, I'm feeling progression. So if I'm following all these previous theories and what I've been doing, do I feel in flow or not? Is my progression interrupted or not? Cool. Promise next, those will come, it'll be more clear. So let's go to the second part of that, or actually third, I think, third, the title. Impact. Now, this section probably will be the most beef out of this presentation. So we will go through 9 different steps that can take, just apply right after this session in your game. And through it, you'll be able to understand your players more. You'll be able to prioritize your features better, even how you design the economies of those features better, and as well set targets for yourself to grow the game. Meanwhile, and above anything, actually, your players will enjoy and feel in flow. And from now on, when I mention players, I will mean your most important players as a business, actually your spenders. So actually the players we really care about them, the ones who retain a lot, right? Once you spend in a game, you retain a lot because you enjoy the experience. So it's like a win-win situation, right? So step one. Step one is you define 2 vectors. The first vector, I can give it to you, and you already do it, which is monetization. So you look and you segment or group people by how much they spend in the last 28 days or last month. So the first group will be 0, which means they're non-spenders. Next would be more than 0 till 10, from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000, whatever suits you as a game. And the window as well, 28 days, it depends on your game and your monetization. The second vector, we'll use these vectors in the next slides. The second vector, which is a bit more tricky, has to do with engagement in the game. So I'll give you a trick that can help you spot this. If you look to your gem sinks or hard currency sinks, for example, see which sink fluctuates a lot and reflects a lot in your metrics. It could be anything. That could be health. So you see that with these events and in our LiveOps, suddenly the health players start to spend their hard currency in health, right? Or it could be something else. It could be the count of, could be a metric as well, like levels completed in that month. And again, all of that grouped by month, last 28 days or month. Cool. Now we have these 2 metrics. When you have the 2 metrics, now you get your monthly revenue, the 5 million that this game had, and you basically segmented accordingly. So here, the M1 to M4 means you are here non-spender, right? 0. That's why the revenue is 0 here. And then you spend more here. And the E1 is like the engagement vector. It could be anything that's mentioned. Could be your health in the game. Could be levels completed in a month. And this goes basically like, again, increases this way. And this is the percentage of the revenue you have. And after you do that, that's step 2, explore your revenue. You explore your MAU, so the monthly active users. Same players. You just now look at the counts, how many of them. And this is the first learning will come from that, actually. Most of us as game teams, we focus on these folks here. Because we think this is the ones who monetize most, right? This is the ones who actually will find your RPPU is the highest, your conversion is the highest. So you think, great, if we actually push more players towards that, we will grow as a business. But then you keep releasing features and they're not working, and I don't know why they're not working. Or maybe they increase a little bit, but not so much. But this will let you keep something in mind, that this is actually 3,000 players, right? And they are responsible for 11% of your revenue. But there's these folks here who are responsible for 13% of your revenue, and those ones here, 32% of your revenue, that maybe they don't want to play like these people, right? That's not their flow. And we will look into how we figure out their flow now. So far, I was just looking at high-level metrics. Okay, interesting. Our revenue is not really coming from those, and people like to play differently. So step 4 is to start studying the segments on a high level. So now we will start to looking at the important segments out of those, and we will start to look at the ARPDAU, the LTV curve, everything we look at. Once a while, we want to grow a game, and we'll go back to the board, and when our UA team is wondering how the cohort is performing that we acquired, we keep jumping to these metrics. So now let's look at these metrics, but instead on a high level, but per segment here, or behavioral segment. I will focus on this group, or I advise you as well to start studying the segments. That kind of makes sense, right? Those added up makes more than 70% of your revenue, which means as well, I keep talking revenue as a product manager, and we talk business and growing business, but we are in the entertainment industry. And actually, one of the things I love working in gaming, that when I do my job properly, is actually when players enjoy playing the game. And when they enjoy playing the game, your revenue will increase. So there's no contradiction in that. Cool. So let's look at these on metrics here, on high-level metrics. So this is an example of retention. So you will find, I thought to say you may, but actually I'm very confident you will find, that these people here, they spend the same way. So it's M3, which means they spend the same way every month. So they bring you, they're equally important to you. Again, they're both whales, right? So it's not only the 3,000 players that are whales. Both of those are whales, but they just play differently. And you'll see that you might not be addressing their retention that well. So if your retention, you want to increase your retention, it would probably make more sense, it will be easier as well and more actionable to study these players and try to improve their experience in the game. And if you look at your LTV curve, right, to maybe justify scaling the business or anything, you will see as well they will have different LTV curves. I know I keep repeating this, but the good thing about looking at these behavioral segments that you will never see these differences if you just segment by the basic stuff, right? You'll end up with the Charles Aussie things on Aussie situation. Cool. Now, so far, we just understand that, okay, if we want to influence our LTV, let's look. We might not be able to influence it. We might not be able to move it here. But this is not just, by the way, because this is a whale and this is like a dolphin or a lower spending. No, they spend the same way. It's just different experience in the game. Probably these people are not really in the flow. Probably they enjoy the game less than these people. Let's look at that. And that takes us to step 5, checking how we're doing in the time. Well, actually, pretty well. I'm going too fast. Sorry. Well, we'll have time for questions then. Step 5. Step 5 will be to look into the game metrics. So now we looked at the high level. We spotted these certain segments which really influential in our growth. We as well looked at the LTV curve and retention curve. Now let's look at the game itself. Let's assume in this game you have like one of the two major things. You have health bar, for example, how much people spend in health or energy or whatever. And here you have power-ups. So just spending your diamonds in boosters or power-ups. So this is the energy, and this is the health or energy, and this is the power-ups. And you will see as well, even though these two groups, right, spend, again, equally important to you, both are whales, but they spend totally different in power-ups. Totally different. and as well spend totally different in health. You'll see that this one, especially when they are really, really active, they start to spend their diamonds more into power-ups. And this one's actually no in health. If you remember these theories I mentioned, they will come in hand, because maybe this one want to play more, longer sessions, and kind of earn upgrading. They like mastery. They're like mastery players. They want to earn having those having those characters stronger, or spawners more active. And these ones here, they kind of prefer like, well, I will earn it through going through the meta, getting some gems, getting some rewards, and then I invest it into buying this upgrade itself. So they play differently. Step 6, which I think is the most important thing, because this whole M3s, E3s, E3s, like really confusing. Oops, really confusing. Like, and you lose track of them as well. And you don't want people in the team walking around, hey, did you check the M3, E3 thing? So I advise you then to use the theories and give them names. So here we have Maddie and Ursula, and you might find certain patterns, and you might just play around with it. It could be like 3-to-1, 2-to-1. You'll see that, okay, maybe the health players, let's call them from now on health players. They spend in health twice diamonds or hard currency more than in power-ups, like when they're really active. And this one's, it's the other way around. They spend in power-ups twice as much as they spend in health. They're diamonds. I want to highlight something here, because we tend to look at daily spending per gems and all of that. That does not mean at all that here they spend in health more than those spend in health. No, not at all. It might be spending equally in health. I'm talking about the ratios. So don't really care about the totals, right? We know now both are ways. But if you look monthly, you'll see the ratios differ as well. So just try to find a good ratio and plot it and see what makes sense and pick the right ratio. It could be 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 or 4-to-1. It depends really on the game, and it depends on the metrics itself. Now, we have 2 segments in the game now. So I really advise as well to shrink it to 2 or 3. You have these 2, and we will call those now the kind of behavioral segmentation. Next would be to look at their retention. So it's the same retention curves that was really messy and probably was very unclear. I apologize for that. Now to be much clearer. So now you have these 2 groups, and you see here, like really poor choice of color, that D90 retention for health is 16%. For power-ups, it's 12%. And you make this a third group, which is indecisive, which is people who are not sure, really. They're still like whales. They're really important for you, but they didn't really choose a certain thing, which I'll come to those. Next. And here's like, let's say, D180 retention. You'll see that health have a 10%, power-ups have 6%. So I have a game, and we have like a D90, assuming problem. We want to boost and improve our D90. Which one do you think is more actionable and would make sense? We know already we managed to achieve the 16% here. So the power-up players, probably, if I deliver them an experience that they would enjoy by modifying, again, the features that I have, by having as well diversity in my LiveOps, because maybe my LiveOps is not diverse enough. I've been releasing features focused on these 3,000 players who make 11% of my revenue, thinking they're the most engaged, so probably they're a good indication to what people like, but actually they're not. So maybe now I can look back into that and change my approach. And as well, same for D180 or any really, it could be early retention, by the way, as well. It could be anything. This is really complex. I just put it there to look smart. No. So going back to these 2 segments first, the health and power-up and indecisive, in reality, they are kind of states, actually, right? So as a player, sometimes with certain features, I might behave differently. And you want as well to validate, like, is this really a segment? Like, do people really stick into this behavior with anything? They're really persistent. That's really their flow. So I advise you to do this. It's called Sankey diagram. Sankey diagram is a really good tool to study transition between states. So here we have health players, power-up players, and players who are indecisive. They're not sure which one. And here, inactive players, the worst thing ever. Spenders stop playing the game at all. You'll see the thick lines, right? Thick lines means that this is weeks. Week over week, they actually retain how they're behaving, so it's not changing. That's a good indication. So it's actually an actual behavioral segment. But you'll see as well, with certain week 2 here, many of them left and became indecisive, and some became inactive as well. I really don't like that, right? We don't want our spenders not to like the game and not to play. So this is a section, right, of an even bigger like sort, which now looks at many weeks. Now that's your LiveOps. You can look for a 3-month period. I don't know how many months. I'm not going to count it, but long period. And now you'll see interesting transitions, which actually will teach you a little bit about your LiveOps fabric, right? You might see in a certain month, oh, wow, we really have had a lot of players here. And where did they come from, right? We managed to transition players from here to here. So it's kind of a state. But then what happened after that? Did they like that we pushed them to play this way? Did they churn? So you start to create rates between all these changes and to start to see how your LiveOps is affecting. We know that it's, you might think that it's cool to move the pink to blue because that's where we make money as a game. But that's really short term. And you might be losing those players a lot. And that's when these kind of tricky metrics, which we don't know why they went down, why they went up, might come, like have relevance here. Here as well, you can plan accordingly, because it's totally fine, by the way, that these players don't engage for like a couple of days. It's fine. But then I can say, like, I can look at it weekly or daily, and I can think, okay, we will make these people in the flow and enjoy their game, and now we make this other feature, or maybe make a variation, and we target these players with this variation. So now it's a different feature for them, and they will enjoy. This is where, like, as well, like optimizing your LiveOps, your features come in hand. Cool. We're still good in time. So basically, like, these temporary shifts, what I'm trying to say here, like this temporary shifting is rather temporary. They will always go back to how they like to enjoy your game. Again, it's like really retained players. They really enjoy the game. And that's how they will play. I mean, that's their life, really. That's how they play. They prefer having shorter several sessions than long sessions. That's just how they play and how they like to enjoy the game. And they do enjoy it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have spent and they wouldn't have retained for that long time. Step 7 is that now you can start to look even deeper, zoom even into your features. Let's assume that's an event, like we all do events in our game. Now you can see a certain event, let's say, it didn't perform as we expected, or as a team we spend a lot of time to improve, but it didn't really improve. Now you might spot things. You might see, okay, this event actually is less interesting for power players. They started less, and after they started, they actually, less retain. This is like retention. How many players played in these days in the event, right? Okay, so this event, now I know it's not for the power-ups players. Maybe at this time I should have a different type of event. Or maybe I can fix the economy, sit with the economy designer or the designer and change the economy that it's relevant for those players, without, of course, pissing off those players. It could be anything. It could be introducing a new sync. It could be really as simple as introducing a new sync or changing the rate of showing a certain sync. Then you can look at your metrics. And this is where you find some interesting things. Like we might think, okay, some features have like spikes sometimes, like let's say when you release a season pass, like people buy it when it's released, right? So you will see how that as well certain features react, players and behavioral segments react differently to each feature. So even though these spenders had like 0.5 ARPDAU in general, and these had 0.2, but when I released this feature, I was able to push it to 4 USD, but this one I only pushed it to 1, which means those are more reactive to that feature. It's more relevant to them. So you can as well go back to the high level, and so not just these kind of things, but even the high level. It will help you as well to estimate how much the improvements or the changes you will do will change your overall game growth, and justify it from the business-wise as well. Same for conversion as well. You might find certain segment convert differently. Again, these differences, these massive differences will not show from just LTV 100 to 500. It's not going to show. It's not going to appear. Step 8. Step 8 has to do with the user research. So far I've been talking numbers, but actually, like it's for myself, I really love user research. I find it really useful tool, and underused sometimes in many studios as well. This is exactly where user research can come, because now I have these segments, which means actually I have their player IDs as well. I can now run a survey across those players and interview them. Like, hey, Why do you like our game? Like, I'm curious. Of course, we already had some hypothesis why they like the game. We have all these theories in mind, right? So self-deterministic theory, again, that's how they determine to spend their diamonds. Skinner's theory, that's how they feel rewarded with this event. It's probably because we do that thing and this thing. That's how they feel rewarded in it. They have a certain goal. We see they upgrade their items more, for example. And lastly, like, they are in the flow doing that. So just talk to them and tell them, like, are you in the flow? What's your flow? What do you do? How do you play the game? And you'll be really surprised when you do that. You might find some players telling you, I wish if I can play the game more. It's just, I'm a mom and I don't have time, so I have to play short sessions. And that's how I play the game. Someone might tell you, oh, I really wish if I can spend my gems more into this. I have a lot of gems. I have no idea what to do with them. But I wish if I can just, have more of that thing or have less of that thing. So now the user research side will be even more powerful because you have the numbers that back it up. So remember this, the hypothetical scenario here we have of a studio with a 5 million that wants to make 15 million in a year, really ambitious growth target, 10 million more. Now, if we go back to this, and if you look here, can you tell, if you have this 10 million, how will you, this is the revenue, right, the 5 million, how will you just put it there? Just like really sit as a team. How can we just like literally take it with our hands, have like a bucket of balls and just put it there? We can do it in many ways. Like, we can do it in all different directions you can imagine. We can like try to move players from here to here, which is what most of us do, right? Okay, like maybe the gem spending like seems like when people spend a lot of gems, we grow more our revenue, grow our more. How can we make them spend more gems? So this direction. I mean, it is valid, and you need to keep doing it, but probably those will lead to more impact. So vertically means like I already have players that plays the game with this kind of engagement. How can I make it more relevant to them that it justifies they would spend more in the game, right? Or it could be that I can engage those little bit here. Actually, players will shift. If you start serving them more, it means they will, if that's an engagement metric, they will spend more money, which might lead to them engaging more. So it's normal to move this direction a little bit. To move to the extreme, it's really rare. That's why you have only 3,000 players here. So look into this, sit with your team, and decide how you want to focus. So yeah, again, now you have very clear quantitative goals. You can say, okay, these players, the health players, we want to improve their retention by X, their time spending by Y, their ARPDAU by Z. So now you have really good justified number that the product manager and the team will really like. It's like, yes, now we can have goals and set targets. Think of how you will grow them. Again, as mentioned, you can change stuff in your LiveOps or maybe change your LiveOps plan, maybe shorten some events to make space for certain type of events. Look at the backlog of features. We all, like, at least for us, like as well, which is something I love at Metacore, we have like long backlog of features, right? The barrier to propose a feature and look at and be innovative is really low in our studio, which is great, and I think all studios should have it this way. Then we have a long list of the backlog, but how can we groom the backlog? Which feature is more important? Keep your gut feeling, but as well, use this as a tool, can help you. Oh, well, this feature will help more this kind of power players. Let's do it. Let's try it out. And yeah, intuitively list new features as well that you might think. And I promise as well, when you start looking at this data and make this kind of trilogy of basically like designer, PM, and data in your team, let them sit together and think and brainstorm together. They will come up with some cool features while looking at the stuff. And finally, update your roadmap. So now that's my roadmap for the year. That's what we need to do. Let's look into how we will deliver it. And we can even think of what kind of ambition we have to grow the game as a business as well. And above all, I know I keep talking numbers and numbers and numbers, but above all, the players will enjoy the game as well more. So that's kind of the summary of the presentation. I was surprisingly in time, which I'm really glad for. So basically, all of us have this itchy metric that we want to grow in the game. It's like we are doing well, but like this D90, if just we can improve it, no? The competitor have it better than us. Why? Like, and we try to justify why it's like that, and I'm like, maybe the UA campaign, like, try to, play sometimes some games. But it's fine. Now let's look at these metrics. Let's bring it back and look at it from these behavioral segments. You might learn something. Second point, again, is LiveOps really change how your players feel in the game. Like, we quite often think that only new features will cause the big bang. Changes in our LiveOps can really influence how we grow as a business. So this will as well show you how the LiveOps is really like tailoring the experience to your player. And if it's not tailoring, then you're doing something wrong. Then use it as a tailoring tool by segmentation. This as well will break the dogma of linking a certain fully focused thing in the game, that we make all features to sync a specific hard currency, or could, like any virtual currency, really. This might break this dogma. You'll find that, actually there's a different breed of players that actually enjoy the game a lot that we can serve differently. And lastly, now you can ask your BI team or data team, hey, please add these new segments, like call them Power Up and Health segments. I want to look at all our metrics using those. And now you'll see the deltas, the differences. It's not going to be anymore like, did it really move? Let's make it for 3 years. No, it's going to be really different week over week. So that's it. That's not for me. But I timed it really well. We didn't agree on So. And I think we have a good, like 7 minutes for questions. So if anyone have questions. That's when I pretend I cannot see your hand.
Hopefully it's not too bad.
No, please.
Really enjoyable, thank you. This one's a bit about scope management to coincide with this. So I wanted to ask, how do you begin to determine time cost of a new content implementation versus the player's reactivity to that content or spending, so that you can actually determine which feature would be worth the bang for buck?
It's a really good question. So my approach, like a general approach, you should always have this kind of 3 or 4 big wins you want to do, and you really as a team you should focus on it. Like if by end of year we achieve these 4 features, 3 features, we're happy if we had any downside. The second is actually in all these metrics, you should always involve your producer. I think many of us don't do that, and we just collaborate with our producers when we want to know how much it will take the developer to develop it, or we want resources. And I think that's wrong. The whole team should share. We share all of that inside the company. Like everyone knows about it. So from my side, I look at the impact, like it will bring in any of these metrics that I think we should improve, and as well how much time it will take. Like obviously, that's again, like I'm saying the obvious. But I pay more attention to the impact for these 3 or 4 big wins I want to do in this year. I don't know if that answered your question or not. And it comes as well, for example, now we have summer holidays or people get sick and stuff. So it's not only about planning, but as well what you do as risk management. Which feature, sometimes you have that, like, and then, okay, COVID came. And then how can I prioritize? Now I cannot produce all these features. So like, which feature should I focus on? So I think this as a tool will help you as well decide that, because quite often we don't know how much revenue this feature will bring. And then, of course, there's experience in the team that people might think, okay, I applied this before in another game and it led to this. Any other question? Did I answer your question? Or we can talk outside as well if you know. Yes.
I guess I'll just ask it this way. Do you find that with the success of the certain feature, do you take your actions more reactively, or do you stick to like a long-term roadmap of your product?
I think that's another very good question, and it's an active discussion in the team. I think if we have this like hypothesis, let's say we want to improve our health in this like game here I presented. If we see indeed there's a positive reaction, we might sit as a team and relook. So every 3 months, for example, every month we look at, of course, our roadmap and see how things are doing. But then every 3 months, if you look to your performance, you can see, okay, we really managed to grow the performance focusing on these features. Is the prioritization we did in the beginning of the year still valid or not? So you can do that. You can definitely do it, but you should not overdo it. And usually you will not overdo it if it's based on growing the business, right? Otherwise, you have a really good problem. Tell me your studio.
Hi, thank you for this. So I heard a machine learning engineer from Rovio in Toronto speak about personalization for optimizing all these metrics.
I
And
might know the person.
Ignacio.
Yes, I know Ignacio.
Amazing.
Hi.
So he was. So I guess how common is the practice that you're doing? Because it's partially competitive with the AI-based practice where, AI looks at all these metrics, optimize in real time the game experience, yada, yada, based on like maybe remote rules or whatever. And what do you say? So in your position at your company, would you ask for a budget to implement what you're doing using AI? Would you find that more effective? Which practice is more common in your experience in different companies you worked?
All right. So now I'll talk from my personal perspective and as well Metacore, so not Rovio, because I worked at Rovio before. I know very well what he presented actually, because we collaborated into it in it when I was there. I was a data analyst before, so of course for me clustering using machine learning models, I did them myself as well at some point, is great, but sometimes they can be time wasting, in my opinion. In all of what I presented, we didn't use a single model. I could present this in a more attractive way, and actually the clustering, the segmentation, could have done it manually, then run a machine learning model to cluster it and say like, oh, we did this using AI, machine learning. Nice buzzwords, so that we hire more like AI people as well. So I mean, AI is important, like don't take me wrong. And what, as well, Ignacio like presented is really valid and indeed bring a lot of value in Rovio back then. But don't rush so much into that. Most of the cases, you will be able to learn more about your players and do changes in the game without the need at all of machine learning or AI. That's a very personal perspective, like I have, and it's very powerful what I'm saying. I think AI and ML comes really handy in ads, in, for example, UA, and in ads. And as well, it can come handy learning stuff. For example, player flows, like the flow, the state of, sometimes you can use like AI and machine learning to figure out what states people shift between and stuff like that. So it can come handy when you have a large DAO. It can come handy with that. So it can come handy, but don't go for it first. Like start manual stuff first. I hope I answered your question. So. And sorry to interrupt you, but to continue, it might be after the learning, I might use machine learning and AI to dynamically change the feature. Definitely, actually. This is where AI comes very handy. Or dynamically change the offers I give to players. So that's, yes, you can use AI for that, machine learning. Sorry.
Thanks for the presentation. I was curious, when you decide when to start with the segmentation? Before launching? Hey, yeah. So thanks for the presentation. So I'm curious, when you decide the segmentation, before launching the game, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks, or after is out there and you see some data?
No, after, definitely after. So you cannot have any of that. I think to be overthinking to do that, like in the first few weeks. I think when you build a game in the beginning, you should actually have one of those segments in mind and build a game for those. And if you accidentally attract a wider group, or you see that same base starts to crack into smaller segments and groups, then think about it like as building a country. You want to build a country from scratch. So you build it in a certain way and system, and then you see, okay, people started to have difference in income, difference in belief systems and stuff like that. I'll start building more different type of jobs and stuff. It's just a bit the same. So in the beginning, I wouldn't at all think this way. I think like really have very full focus into a small group that, not small, but actually I should believe they will grow, but one segment, small amount of segments, I mean, and talk to them, see them playing and stuff like that.
Thanks.
Okay, there's one question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great presentation. Question, so you talked about planning a long-term feature roadmap. How much inspiration do you take from other games with in similar genre, considering you don't have insight into their player segments?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of tools you can use, like to like Game Refinery and others that you can use to figure out what your competition is doing. That's a tough question. We do, of course, like, and I do, like in any company I work for, I do check competition. It's important to look at what competition is doing. But then I look at it with the lens I just mentioned. So if I really see this is fitting my players, then of course I could try it and I could do it. But as a game studio, as I told you, we aim to build hit games. And most likely, like if you just follow your competition, you're not gonna do a hit game. You're not gonna, like, merge management is really like much different than competition because of that. Then if we want to do another hit game, it's not gonna be by just copying the competition. When it comes to some monetization features, approaches, then of course, yeah, why not? You can look at it and, as I said, have these 4 big wins that you want to do. But then if you want to improve monetization and you want to, let's say, like, I don't know, it's very common now, tiered offers. Almost all games have tiered offers. Yeah, why not? Starter packs. All games have starter packs. Yeah, why not? Like the FTE, something in FTE, like, okay, doing the FTE or first-time user experience in this way. Yeah, why not? There's no shame into that, as long as it basically fits your game. But there's a very high likely none of them will be a big hit. So. All right. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. Another clap. That's like... I really want to see the person on the other side. Thank you so much. Thanks.